First, put your oxygen mask on yourself so you can help younger ones. If you don't have your own needs met, you can't help those in a bigger need. I think this could be said for the animal rights movement as well. Thank you so much. So I've been active, first in the peace movement, as was mentioned, and now in the animal rights movement, totally about 17 years. And I've seen many activists come and go, many young persons full of passion and energy. But I've also seen many activists that don't show up anymore, and I wonder why. And when I look, and I have an example as one that have showed up for a long time, Patty Mark. She started the open rescue movement in Australia and has been working very hard for more than 30 years for the animals. So let's see if we can do more like her. When I look at the animal rights movement today, I feel very hopeful. It's a growing and strong movement in many ways. But I also feel that we can be stronger. And the most important questions we can ask ourselves is, one, how do we get more people into the movement? But I think especially ask ourselves, how can we make them stay longer? And I will share some of my own experiences of being a long-time activist, and also some research and experiences from others that I have talked to. Today I run the project A Year for the Animals that was mentioned. Now it's actually my 4th year for the animals. I have some information in the back that you can take on your way back out after the workshop. And now you know some things about me, and I would like to know some things about you. So I have 4 questions. So if you could please raise your hand if you identify as an animal rights activist. Can I see? Okay, that's basically everyone. Great, because this is the talk I have for you, or the workshop, I should say. Please raise your hand if you feel you have a good balance between paid work, activism, and free time. Not so many, maybe a 4th or a 5th in this room. So maybe that's why you're here. Good. Please raise your hand if you believe that you will still be active for the animals 30 years from now. Okay, thank you. That was maybe 70-80% of you. And that would be truly impressive if you manage. And good to have as a goal. So this is Abraham Maslow. And he's an American psychologist. In 1943, he came up with his hierarchy of needs, which is a very popular concept today. So the thinking behind this is that at the base we have physiological needs, and then safety, we have need for love and belonging, esteem, and in the top, self-actualization. And his theory is that if we don't make sure we have the needs of the lower levels taken care of, we can't really go up to the higher levels. Now, this theory has gotten some criticism. Some say, for instance, that an artist can have a stronger need to express herself than, for instance, safety. And some say that are even needs that Maslow totally missed. They are even more basic. I don't know what you think about this, but regardless, I think this theory is something that we could think about when it comes to human needs. And my aim today is to use this as a framework and to see what are the needs of an animal rights activist and how can we fulfill those needs to be more effective for the animals. And I've included some discussions within my talk, so we'll have a little bit of a workshop also. Some of you might already have objections, saying maybe, it's not my needs who are important, it's the needs of the animals who are suffering and dying that is really important today. Some of you might have come with an airplane to this conference. Maybe you heard a flight attendant say these words: please first put your oxygen mask on yourself so you can help younger ones. Why is that something they say in an airplane? But why help yourself first and not the child first? I don't think that's reason. Yeah? Exactly. If you don't have your own needs met, you can't help those in a bigger need, like young ones. I think this could be said for the animal rights movement as well. In a way, you can see that is always an emergency in the animal rights movement. All the time, animals are being killed and tortured. And if we don't see to our own needs first, we are not able to help them. So that's what we're going to look at. How can we see to our own needs so that we can most effectively help others? So let's start at the bottom. Let's start with physiological needs like food, water, air, sleep, and sex. Let's look here. Do you recognize this picture? It is true that we humans can survive on quite little sleep and food and still function pretty well. But sometimes it seems like we activists think that we don't really need these things. Because we strive for a higher purpose, like helping animals, we get superpowers. It's only this kryptonite that can really hurt us. But I think it's time to be realistic. We animal rights activists, we have needs like everyone else. We also need 7 to 8 hours sleep. We need proper food. And even though we can function without this for some time, we don't function as well if we don't get these things. And we don't function on an optimal level. We need sleep, but we also need rest while we are awake. It could mean a walk or a talk with a friend or a movie or something else. It could mean practicing yoga or meditation or something else that suits you. Everyone needs rest of some form. Because if we don't get this rest and if we are constantly stressed, we are at risk for burnout. And what are the signs of a coming burnout? I was hoping that you can help me to name a few of these signs of a coming burnout. Can I hear some? Memory loss, maybe. Anything else? Helplessness. Anything else? Not being able to concentrate. Very good. Sorry? Having no motivation. Very good. Short temper. Easily aggressive. Sleeplessness. Very good. You have mentioned many of them. I have some here. Anxiety, chest pains, it could be, insomnia, depression, loss of appetite, chronic fatigue, shortness of breath, loss of joy, anger, headaches. I'm sure it could be other signs, and many of those you mentioned as well. Can I ask you if you would like to share how many of you have had a burnout in your life one or more times? It's a few, yeah. And it's something to be taken very seriously. Not only for yourself, it can be terrible for yourself, but also for the movement. So look out, please, for the signs of this, both in yourself and in your friends and colleagues around you. And if you see these signs, please take action and try to prevent it if it's possible. Another thing, we activists, like everyone else, needs good fuel for the body to be able to run well. And the better fuel we get, the better our body works, and the longer we can keep staying active for the animals. I think all of us knows, of course, being vegans, we have quite many good options of food, but we know also what the best vegans food are: unprocessed whole food, lots of vegetables, of course, and a variety of those. Of course, now and then you can eat unhealthy meals, but just having a habit of taking the more healthy options can help the animals in the long run. There are tons of evidence how important exercise is for the body, both for your psychological and your physical health. You will get sick less often and you will live longer if you have a regular exercise in your life. And maybe sometimes you think, oh, but it takes time for my activism if I'm going to have to run or doing push-ups and so on. But instead of thinking that, you might think this is a valuable investment for the animals, because if I take my time for exercise, I will get more done for the animals and I will live longer. Sometimes you can even combine it with activism, as I did in August in Stockholm, running 10Ks for the same movement to raise some money for that. Yes, Michelle?
I also used to go out running with posters and putting out posters.
Running with posters, that's the exercise. That's good, very good. I think the key for taking care of your body is healthy habits. You have these habits already, like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. That's something you don't even have to think about to do. Just do it. And you can do it like having a regular time for exercise each day. And then you don't have to force yourself to do it. So the next level is safety needs. And we all need a stable and safe environment to live in, and a roof over our head and a bed to sleep in. And we also need a steady income to be able to get food and other essential things. In her book, The Lifelong Activist, which I recommend, Bite Back has it on the book table out here. Hilary Rettig, she says that poverty is not a sustainable strategy for animal rights activism. And I would agree with her. However, in rich societies, I feel we have an exaggerated view of how much money we really need to have a sustainable economy. It's a very strong norm, as you probably know, to have a full-time job. But my experience is that you can get by pretty well on a low income as well, if you adapt to a simpler lifestyle. Most of us will get some form of employment, and you can do that. Of course, it's a good way to get an income. But I also want to say that watch out, because you can be affected by your colleagues, and even if you today have a strong passion for animals and animal rights, you will be affected somehow, maybe at least, by their values if they don't share your values. Many think that you have to have employment to have some kind of income. But there are other ways, and that's something I talked about last year actually at this conference, with the title How to Finance Full-Time Animal Rights Activism, something you can watch on YouTube if you want to. There is also a need to think about safety when it comes to activism, especially if you are active in direct actions. This is my friend Max, he went out to the Swedish forests to try to prevent hunters to kill animals there. And he got severely assaulted, as you can see, by one of the hunters. The Swedish direct action group, Empty Cages, had a blockade of a slaughterhouse, and one of the activists almost got run over by one of the trucks who came very fast. And at another blockade of a slaughterhouse, we got a hate storm of messages. More than 700 people wrote things like, just run them over, or yeah, I hope you will be hit by the truck, and other things. This is pretty common when you, especially when you physically go against the meat industry, like these examples. And you can say, oh, it's only words, but that can also have a negative effect on your mental health. Of course, if you also use civil disobedience, that's a risk you take of getting into legal problems, maybe getting fines or pay damages or even prison if the courts finds it severe enough. So, of course, there is definitely a risk with some other forms of activism that we should consider before going into this. But I also want to say there is also a risk of always playing it safe. You will not develop as much if you always play it safe and never risk anything. And I think we as a movement, we also need to risk something when we want to resist the meat industry and factory farms. The trick is to find your balance between risk and safety, something that works for you. So I will move on with level number 3, social needs. So now we come into psychological needs of different forms. And of course, we all have a need to belong and to feel accepted. And this can prove hard for vegans and for activists sometimes. Because it's not always, as you probably know, that you are accepted for your choices of food and your choices what you do with your time. And there is a great risk that you will be disappointed, even feel betrayal, especially from family and friends, when you tell them about how the industry of animals look like, and they still don't get it. They still keep consuming animal products. Then you can feel, this disappointment, and that can cause a rift in your relationships. So how do we deal with this? Well, there are different ways, but one could be how you identify yourself. So one identification you probably has is a vegan and maybe also as an activist. But that's not the only identity you have. You are maybe also a child or a colleague or a friend. You might be a painter or a mother or whatever. You have many, many different identities, all of you. So no, you won't stop being a vegan and you won't stop being an activist. But in some of the relationships, perhaps you could turn the vegan identity down for a while and then turn up another identity, like being a friend to someone. So you let other identities shine through more than others. And it doesn't mean that you are letting the animals down. It only means that you shift this perspective that you have according to who you're relating to. So you can get this social belonging need met so that you can get more energy to be more active for the animals later. Another way to solve this is to fulfill your social needs with people that fully shares your vegan values and your activism. Because we don't need to get this acceptance from everyone, but we do need to get it from some. And where do you find this? Well, I would suggest going to an animal rights group of some kind, if you can find it. Then you can combine activism with your social needs being met. When I'm an organizer of any animal rights activism, I try to include some social gathering of some kind, having a meal or a cup of coffee together. I find that it's nice, but it's also more of a chance that people are coming back after such a gathering together. This is after a vigil we had with Linköping Animal Save in the Save movement, having a nice meal together. Of course, it depends where you live. If you live on the countryside or in a smaller town, it might be difficult to find this group. So then you might have to travel a bit longer or even move or find support online. Okay, so what about a romantic relationship? Hilary Rettig, the author of The Lifelong Activist that I mentioned before, she writes, "Nothing is more sabotaging of success than choosing the wrong mate, and nothing is more catalyzing of success than choosing the right one." So, who is the right one for you? That's the question many, I think, have. Well, ideally, of course, it's someone who shares your values. Even better if it's a person that shares your lifestyle and your activism. And at the minimum, it should be, I think, someone who is not opposed to your veganism and who respects your choices. Rettig, she advises also to have relationship with as less drama as possible. And this might seem boring, but conflicts, and at least if it's often and very intense conflicts with someone that is close to you, it can drain a lot of your energy. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. And if it does, we might not have enough energy for our activism. And many of us who are deeply into animal rights activism, we have a lot of drama in that. It can be emotionally draining of seeing animals being hurt. So we need all the energy we can have. So we can't afford really to spend it on anything else, maybe. So do you have to have a romantic partner to live a fulfilled life and to be an effective activist? Well, obviously there are some advantages of having a romantic partner, especially if that relationship works well, if you get the support you need. But I'm convinced that you can be very fulfilled and an effective activist also without a partner. What I think basically everyone needs is one or a few persons in your life that you're really close to and that shares some of your values. And that you can find in many ways. I find that support in my vegan community where I live in Stockholm. That's where I get my everyday support from my friends in that community where I've now lived for 9 years. What about children? Do we need to become parents to have a fulfilled life? It's clear. Yes, dog? Or I haven't actually included pets in this talk, but that's another. Do we need children and pets? Well, I think, it's clear that someone has a very strong longing to have children. But I think it's safe to say that not every human being needs to be a parent to have a fulfilled life. It's also a fact that at least when children are small, they take a lot of energy and time. And this will certainly leave less time for animal rights activism. That being said, I have seen examples of great activists that manage somehow to combine having children with activism. And what about the fourth level, esteem? That's about feeling confidence in oneself and also getting respect from family, friends, and colleagues. Sometimes we get encouraged to break the norms. Maybe I've seen a picture. We are asked to be this guy. That was a man who refused to do the Nazi salute in 1936 at a meeting where Hitler attended. Pretty brave. But to be fair, mostly we are taught to follow the norms. We are taught to be like everyone else, and if we are not, it can carry a high price to be different. And that's something many, if not all of us, have an experience of. This could mean that we don't get the normal respect that people get. And this can affect your self-esteem negatively. Another consequence can be that we begin to lose hope. If we are not shown respect for our values, you might feel that humans, they will never get it. All people are selfish, except you, of course. But this can also create, both a loss of hope and it can make you very angry. I got a message on Facebook from one of my colleagues and friends in the animal rights movement, and she wrote, "I need to find ways to release some of my anger. Any advice? #angry all the time." How many of you can I see with their hands? How many relate to this? Some of you at least are angry, yeah. And of course, it's totally okay to be angry and sad about how things are going in the world today. It's an adequate feeling when you think about how many animals are killed and tortured every day. But if we let this anger and darkness consume us, it is a problem. Then it might sap all our energy and we have nothing left for the animals. So, in spite of all the darkness, we should also try to find ways to have fun in the world. We are allowed to forget about the bad things sometimes and just have fun. It's not only okay, really, I think we have an obligation to do it. Because if we don't do it, we don't get that energy that we so need to be active for the animals. Anyone who recognizes this person? Anita Kreins, the founder of the Save movement. I asked her 2 days ago what keeps her active. She has been active for a long time. And she told me she finds hope in a growing movement. She wrote to me, "The love-based community sustains the movement, and seeing the exponential growth of the Save movement is heartening." I find personally hope in reading and hearing about other struggles for justice. I read and watch documentaries about the civil rights movement, the struggle for gender equality, the abolishment of slavery, and other important movements in the world, both in history and today. They give me hope that major change can and do happen. And I also think it gives me also energy to think about the coming age where we have managed to get rid of all exploitation and killing of animals. And that gives me energy and lightens the darkness. Patty Mark, who I mentioned in the beginning of this talk, has also been active for a very long time. And I also asked her what keeps her active. And she sent me an article where she got interviewed, and she said this: "It's something I can't even describe. It's not in my control. When I'm around animals, I just think they're so beautiful, intelligent, and incredible. They inspire me totally. To be around animals gives her strength to keep going on." That's also something that maybe you can use. I see many activists coming into the movement full of passion, energy, and that's great. But they have sometimes very high expectations that things will change very quickly. And when it's not changing as quickly as they hoped for, they get disappointed, and that's not strange. But being in a radical movement for change means that things are going to change, but it will take time. It's like changing direction of a huge cruise ship. It's totally possible, but it will take time. And I think if we realize that, it makes it easier. If we have psychological problems that we don't find solutions to, there is no shame of seeking professional help, like a psychologist. It can cost some money, but think about it. If you can get help, it can mean the world for the animals. If you then, after that, getting that help, can use your whole life to struggle for animals, it can be really worth it. Now we have been talking about the needs of the body and the mind. It might seem frustrating to you that we haven't actually talked about activism so much yet. But you can also look at this way, that if you have figured out the first 4 levels, then you're pretty good shape. Then you have a great potential to become a very fantastic animal rights activist. And you don't have to feel that you perfectly have met your needs at every level. I think it's good, if it's good enough, you can go up to the next level. That's at least how I think it works. How about the last level, self-actualization? Abraham Maslow, he says it's about to become everything one is capable of becoming. Perhaps some of you think that this is too self-focused, even selfish, to have this kind of goal. But it doesn't have to be, I think. We can aim to be the best person we can, to become the best animal rights activist we can. Then your development and your growth always is a win for the animals. And I think the animal rights movement needs a lot of skills and a lot of methods. And I would suggest that you would try to find your own voice, your own way to be active for the animals. Maybe something that you're already good at that you can use. Maybe also you want to look for what's missing in the animal rights movement where you live or in the movement where you are active, and see what can fit you to work on. And I would say also, don't be afraid to go into new fields or new methods, because trying out new things can lead to growth, both for yourself and for the movement. For myself, such a method is using my camera, that I try to develop my skills as much as I can. And I actually won't talk more about activism and that, because it's also a topic that is covered by many in this conference, and in many ways. What I hope that you will take away from this workshop is the goal to find this balance between your own needs and your activism. And why is that? It is because, of course, there is a dire need to work for the animals, and there is a dire need for being long-lasting in this struggle for the animals. It's great if you can be active for 2-3 years for the animal, but imagine if you can be active for 40 or 50 years. What an immense difference that will mean for the animals. And imagine if every one of us can be active for the whole lifetime. I think that if we can make that happen, the liberation for the animals will be very close. But then we have to take care of our own needs. So I wish you the best of luck for all of you in your own activism, and also in supporting each other's activism. Thank you very much. Hello, and thanks so much for watching this video. Now I'm very curious to hear what your best suggestions are for staying active for the animals and keeping healthy. So please write something in the comments below, and please subscribe to this channel. Thank you.